Yes.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for doing this press conference. It's very timely. I'm Matthew Lee from Inner City Press, and I wanted to ask, I'd asked here actually of the UN spokesman a couple of weeks ago. You'd invited Roger Meese of MONUSCO to come to Kigali and explain his missions, or the UN's missions role in both in the allegations and in, I believe that there's some in Rwanda are saying that MONUSCO at times supports the FDLR or helps them to escape, so I wanted to really get your sense of what you think the UN mission there is doing, and also the very specific allegations are that 3 defense ministry individuals. I just want to get you to address that specifically. James Kurbaby and the chief of military defense staff and a general Nziza, that these are the individuals. The allegation is that these individuals are in touch with M23 routinely, and so I wanted to know, I assume you deny it, but what do you think is behind those allegations? Thanks a lot.
You have assumed right. Let me begin with your second question, Matthew, and thank you very much. I've seen some of your writings on this conflict, and it's always, I used to be a minister in charge of media, and I always like to see reporters doing their own investigation instead of repeating what is in reports by people who have their own agenda. So very clearly, the reason I was saying people need to just calm down and look at this situation, look at the history, look at the context. Otherwise, there is so much conflicting information out there that it risks getting the conflict worse rather than better. So, of course, Rwanda's top army leadership in no way, and I'm very categorical about this, in no way would be involved in destroying the peace they have been working very hard to build. I think without sounding like I'm not modest, which I would want to be, I think Rwanda's army leadership is as good as it gets, both in ethical conduct and in capability. So for anybody to look at this allegation of Rwanda's top army leadership plotting against the government of the DRC, back in 2008 and 2009, if you remember very well, there was a Congolese general called Laurent Nkunda. Laurent Nkunda ended up fleeing in Rwanda back in 2009. And what Rwanda's leadership did was to take him in, to allow for peace negotiations to take place in the DRC. The very first meeting after the recent flare-up in eastern DRC took place in Rwanda, in the border town of Rubavu. And the individuals that you just named, who are being alleged to want to support the mutiny in eastern DRC. And this is on the record because these are meetings between the DRC and the Rwandan government that are minuted, that are recorded. These are the same people who were asked and proposed to encourage the current mutineers not to defect. So on one hand, you cannot have an army chief of staff or minister of defense who's going out of his way to stop people from defecting and go back and start supporting them. So these are contradictions that are very important to know. But this is also where it's important to go from allegation to evidence. Because so far we have had report after report of allegations, but evidence has been very hard to come by. It is not surprising to anybody who knows the region that on both sides of the border you would have officers who know each other, they have worked together, they have fought together. Rwanda and Congo still have joint operations going on in the DRC today. So the fact that officers would be communicating across the border is nothing surprising at all. So, and I think beyond the army leadership and the record of the Rwandan Defense Forces as disciplined and ethical army, I think it's important to ask the question, who would be benefiting? Why would Rwanda, from its top leadership in the army, be involved in destabilizing the region? Rwanda is a country at peace. It is a country that is developing very fast. We are stable. We are one of the fastest growing economies in the world today. Why would anybody, this is an important question that doesn't get asked, why would Rwanda today want to destabilize the region after working so hard to bring stability in the region? Now, on the question of MONUSCO, let me be very candid here. MONUSCO is not the only UN mission that has problems around the world. Now, what is very clear is that when MONUSCO, back then MONUC, went into the DRC, it was for a purpose. And so 13 years have gone by, and the objective has not been fulfilled. So clearly there is a problem. And again, we're talking about one of the most important UN peacekeeping missions in the world. We're talking about $1.3 billion a year. And so it's important to demand accountability. This large force with so much money, why is it that we still have instability in the region? And the accounts we have from the refugees coming into Rwanda from Eastern DRC, and what we see with our own eyes is that there is harm done to the civilians in the region where MONUSCO is. So, but that said, a bigger question is, what are the countries that are responsible for sending these missions doing or thinking? If after 13 years, with the volatility still prevailing in the region, with a huge mission supposed to bring back stability, when are we going to stop and re-examine the role of MONUSCO? As for indiscipline, it's MONUSCO's own internal reports have documented collaboration with FDLR. It has documented incidents of rape. This is not from me or the government of Rwanda. This is some of the actions, reprehensible actions, that have been documented by MONUSCO itself. So it's a question of responsibility. And I think Rwanda, of course, as a peacekeeper, because we do have a number of peacekeeping missions around the world, in both Sudans, in Haiti, and in different parts of the world, we're very much interested in reform of the peacekeeping process. And perhaps MONUSCO is one of the UN peacekeeping missions that we should start with. So we do think it's very important for countries that are responsible for these peacekeeping missions not to let them go literally out there in the jungle and forget them, because it's been a very long time and we don't seem to have any results so far.